Welcome to the VC3 News Update. I am Shanette Hackshaw with the top local news stories for today. Past and present parliamentarians attended a special sitting of the House of Assembly held on Thursday to mark its final session in the historic courthouse building in Kingstown. It was a moment of nostalgia for many and also a meet and greet with even photo opportunities. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, in his remarks, said he was very grateful for the leadership of Madam Speaker Rochelle Ford in formalizing the passing of an era, as that was the last day that it is expected that members of Parliament will be sitting in the Honourable House in that location.
Because, as is well known and well advertised in this Honourable House and everywhere else in this country, that the next sitting sometime towards the end of this month would be at the building in Kaliakwa, which is referred to as the temporary Parliament building. It's such a beautiful building that some people are saying why it doesn't remain, doesn't be the permanent Parliament. But the government has announced its policy in relation to that regard.
The Honourable Prime Minister then proceeded to give an historical reflection of the building that has been an integral part of the democracy of this country. He also disclosed the names of individuals who had been in the building as representatives for more than 20 years. According to Dr. Gonsalves, the late former Prime Minister Sir James Mitchell leads the list. He had been a representative from 1966 to 1979, then from 1980 to 2001, a combined total of 34 years. Opposition leader Dr. Godwin Friday, in his remarks, said the building has seen the progress of this country and our emergence as a modern state, taking its place in the world, seeking to perfect our democracy.
We have seen the rise of persons who have become part of the folklore of this country. The Prime Minister referred to one as a tribune of the people, and to Ebenezer Theodore Joshua as a titan. Many would say of Sir James Mitchell of winning all 15 seats in this Parliament as incomparable in that respect. We have seen political parties, based on his excursion through history, and political figures rise, play their part on the stage, and then they move on. Some fade into history, others are remembered.
Members of Parliament also joined in the nostalgic moment. Among them was Senator Julian Francis, who was speaking 10 months after a leave of absence due to health reasons. He was warmly welcomed to the special sitting. Madam Speaker also announced the names of the recently appointed Parliamentary Publication Committee, who will commence the Herculean task of documenting the multifaceted history of the Parliament of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
And while the Hansards have captured debates, the absence of videographic records of the rich, charismatic, oftentimes flamboyant personalities of the men and women who were courageous enough to serve and build our country in decades past may, unfortunately, with the passage of time and the fading of human recollection, simply disappear. Similarly, this chamber would have been the seat from which much pioneering legislation signaling the dawn of important milestones for this nation would have been passed. But there is no one or series of documents from which this information can be readily and easily accessible.
The committee members are Dr. Adrian Fraser, Rene Batiste, Mr. Cecil Blazer Williams, Mr. Joseph Burns Bonady, Miss Claire Keyser, and Mrs. Michelle King Campbell. Future parliamentary sessions will be held at a temporary Parliament building, which was constructed in Kaliakwa, and is expected to be ready for the sittings by the end of June. The Anti-Terrorism Bill of Commencement and Validation Bill for for 2013 were also passed at the special sitting of Parliament. As this country continues to grapple with the effects of COVID-19, it is continuing to receive assistance. This assistance is coming with the aim of building health, social and economic resilience during the era of COVID-19. To this end, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in collaboration with the Inter-American Development Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank yesterday, held an official project launch and workshop which has the intention of improving response and resilience in the healthcare sector to SVG in response to COVID-19. The agreement was signed between both financial institutions, will finance programs and projects that are aimed at mortality and morbidity from COVID-19. The Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment, St. Clair Jimmy Prince, delivering remarks at the event, noted that the program merges well with the strategic priorities of the ministry, even though it focuses on current health challenges. Prince added that whilst the World Health Organization has declared that COVID-19 is no longer a global threat, long-term preparedness is needed to deal with the effects and future pandemics.
This project merges well with the strategic priorities, although it focuses primarily on the current health challenges within the context of our limited resources, including those created by the COVID-19 pandemic, dengue fever outbreak, and the explosive eruptions of La Soufrière in our special period. But the COVID-19 pandemic continues, but WHO has declared that it is no longer a public health emergency of international concern. And we have to make the distinction. So the international collaboration to implement measures to address the pandemic is no longer needed. However, countries need to continue to implement context-specific measures to deal with the disease, its consequences, other health threats, and to prepare for the next epidemic and pandemic.
Minister Prince added that whilst COVID-19 is not as aggressive as it was, it is still a threat to Vincentians. He further indicated that the project focuses on 4 specific areas and has 3 specific outcomes.
These areas: National Health Emergency Framework, risk communication, ports of entry, health services provision, and the continuity of care. There are 3 specific outcomes. A, improved capacity for surveillance, case detection and monitoring. B, initiatives supported to break the chain of transmission of the illness, or the illnesses, as the case may be. And C, improved service delivery capacity.
The project is also going to supply the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment with waste disposal equipment, as according to Minister Prince, it is essential for the end of the transmission of infectious diseases.
The interruption of the transmission of any infectious disease requires the safe management of the waste generated by the care of patients with the disease. This project will supply waste disposal equipment comprising of autoclaves for sterilizing waste prior to it leaving the facilities, and the supply of a medical waste disposal truck to support biomedical waste disposal at the community health level.
According to the latest statistics provided by the COVID-19 Task Force, this country recorded a total of 9,631 cases, 9,493 recoveries, and 124 deaths due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Still in our local news stories, we are now officially in the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, which began on June 1. Predictions are for a near-normal hurricane activity in the Atlantic this year. Prime Minister Dr. Rav Gonsalves, who also has the responsibility for disaster management, yesterday addressed the nation to signal the start of the season. Dr. Gonsalves said this is the second time in 3 years that the country is entering the hurricane season with drought conditions.
So we have the situation of the hurricane season, but yet you have drought. But the rains will come, and the rains will come heavily, and the storms are also likely to come.
He said data collected by the local Met Services shows a decline in the annual average rainfall for the last 5 years. And in fact, according to him, the average annual rainfall is about 85 inches.
This trend of drier spells amidst downpours periodically and storms and hurricanes, this is what we have to be prepared for in every material respect. In our heads, in our beings, in our infrastructure, in our daily lives and living and production. And insofar as the dry spells are concerned, clearly we have to listen to CWSA when they speak to us about water conservation and water storage, because these are essential in dry periods.
The Prime Minister, in his address, urged Vincentians to be prepared for the hurricane season and to take the necessary precautions when a storm advisory is given.
Don't wait until the storm has arrived. You know you got a loose piece of galvanized on your roof? Get somebody in the area. If you can't do it yourself, your husband, your partner, your son, your daughter who has skills, to go up there and fix the loose galvanized. Strengthen the roof in any way in which you can strengthen it. I also want to make a special appeal to ensure that you have enough water to last you and your family for a few days, because the heavy rainfall often disrupts the water supply.
That was the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, making his address to the nation to signal the start of the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season. And finally, in our local news package, the Human Development Service Delivery under the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, in conjunction with the National Qualifications Department and the Ministry of Education, hosted a mini exhibition and recruitment drive for the Young, Youth and Adults Training for Employment YATE program today at Heritage Square. The purpose of the expo was to provide an opportunity for graduates to showcase their work, underscoring the importance of technical and vocational training as an opportunity for economic empowerment and inclusion. Graduates from previous cohorts who have established businesses were also on showcase at today's exhibition, which took place in Heritage Square. Additionally, recruitment of participants for the upcoming classes were done, and students from the current cohort demonstrated what they have learned in training. That's the VC3 news package. Join us on Channel 114 for local and regional news, to be followed by the VC3 Sports Update with Chilison Anton.